monthly stakeholder meeting, which will be this Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. You can hear about some of the exciting things that we're doing, and some of our members are doing. We always have an opportunity for you to hear from some of our members and stakeholders as well. So I'm looking forward to Thursday's meeting. So sign up. I should be in the chat as well this Thursday, 10 a.m. Our stakeholder meeting. We always talk about funding announcements as well. Some of our projects we're working on. We also have a couple speakers each month. I know we have at least one speaker this month, but we'll have a lot of good information. You can kind of find out where the organization is going each month. And since it's our first meeting, you'll be able to hear me talk about all the wonderful things we have in store for 2024. Also on Martin Luther King Days on Monday, we will be hosting an event on restoring the dream of equity in energy, environment, and transportation on Tuesday, on the 16th of January. So we're looking forward to that. If you've not seen any advertisements on that, just stay tuned. We'll be aggressively promoting that event as well. In fact, I need to get it so I can put it on my social media platforms as well. So look forward to that. That's January 16th, 11 a.m. And then we'll also have our annual report kickoff as well. That event is really, we work with a lot of the public and private sector organizations. We put out an annual report that shows some of the greenhouse gas reductions and emissions each year in our region, both the public and private sector. That information is then rolled up into a report that we send to the Department of Energy, their vehicle technology office. So all of you are doing all this good work out there. You want to make sure that you share that information with us so that you can get credit and get recognized on a national level. Also at our annual conference that we host every year, we recognize different fleets and organizations as well. So, first thing we do is look at people that submit data to us on how they're helping to make our world a better place through reducing greenhouse gases and emissions. Last two things I just want to mention is if you're not a member of GWRCCC, we'd love for you to become a member. We'll also put that in the chat for you as well. We will be doing some events next week at the Washington Auto Show, which is going to be at the Walter Washington Convention Center. So that'll be, I'm moderating a panel there as well. And then we'll have our opening reception coming up in a couple of weeks as well, next month as well. So you'll hear about that on Thursday. So without further ado, we have two very dynamic individuals that will be speaking today. I'm so excited about what's happening with electric cars. There are a lot of incentives, and now you'll hear from these really smart people today about some of the incentives that are available for electric vehicles. And especially now that we're in the new year, there's some incentives that you can take advantage at point of sale. So you'll hear about that today as well. And the office, our office, manages a number of electrification projects. In fact, we just got awarded 4 new projects yesterday. Woo-hoo-hoo. We'll talk about that tomorrow on Thursday. Well, that's it, on Thursday at our stakeholder meeting. So yeah, we just got awarded. We're just 4 proposals we were on, 1 yesterday. So I'm so excited. But yes, make a long story short, let me just get right into it. Today we're going to talk about a lot of the incentives. If you're looking for public charging, we do have a program that where we can get EV charger, help with this help getting EV chargers that are accessible to the public 75% of the time. They must be accessible to the public. They can be on public or private property. So we want you to get EV, right? We want to talk about those incentives, but we also have a program through the Mid-Atlantic Electrification Project where you can request an EV charger in your community or at your business, as long as it's available, accessible to the public. It does not have to be on public property. It just needs to be accessible to the public. So let's go. So our speakers for today, we have Joyce Briner, Executive Director for Poolesville Green, and they do some amazing work. Big things during Drive Electric Week, also during Earth Day and throughout the year. So just a lot of good work. A decade plus electric vehicle owner, co-founder of Poolesville Green. Over the past 12 years, she has led the nonprofit in growing the largest national Drive Electric Week event nationwide, while educating the community about sustainable living, emphasizing renewable energy, EV adoption, and energy efficiency. Joyce's EVs, as well as Joyce's EVs, as well as her household run on sunshine from her net positive rooftop. Okay, I didn't know that. All right. As a climate change professional, climate reality leader, and EV advocate, Joyce advises various nonprofit boards and climate-focused local and county government work groups. And Joyce recently received the EV Awareness Award from Plug In America. All right. A national nonprofit accelerating the shift to EVs through education, advocacy, and research. And we were on a team on a federal grant that we won an award yesterday with them that we'll be doing some events with over the next couple of years. Also, we'll hear from Al Carr, who's a policy analyst with the DC Department of Energy and Environment. Al is he works on clean transportation, renewable energy, and land use, an electrical engineer by training. He formerly served as a Maryland State delegate for 15 years, legislator for 15 years. In that role, he wrote and negotiated passage into law over 60 bills on topics including energy, transportation, environment, and water. He also serves as a board member of the Montgomery County Sierra Club and of Nature Forward. All right. All right, let's put our hands together for these great speakers. All right, smart people, really smart people. All right, so without further ado, we're going to kick it off with Joyce. She'll share some good information with us, and the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I have some slides, and we can put those up. Okay, let me put this over here. So, yeah, so let's go to the first slide. There's the next slide. I'm gonna go back one. Okay, just a quick overview. This is what I'm going to try to cover in a brief 15 minutes. I do have a lot of wordy slides, and I apologize for that, but I'm going to basically try to point out the most important parts or changes that have occurred with the new year. I'm going to go through the clean vehicle incentives, federal, Maryland State, and Montgomery County. All of these are stackable. That's important to consider. So that means in Maryland, you can get $7,500 from the federal and $3,000 from Maryland, and some other things possibly too. And then the home EV charging, I'll try to run through that as well. That's part of being an electric vehicle owner in many cases. Next slide. Okay, so the who qualifies, that's important. These are the income limits, so to speak, and so they're maximums. If you're a joint couple jointly filing, married couple jointly filing, 300,000, over 300,000, you don't qualify. However, I will get to a loophole on that. and that for single filers, and there are other levels there. For a long time, this modified AGI sort of threw me off. There is a better definition now, since the information's been out for a while. But it's not just, it's just not the one line necessarily on your tax form. If you go to that link at the top, that fueleconomy.gov link, that's specified. This is where most of this information is coming from anyway. It's important to note that the credit is non-refundable, and so you can't get back more than the credit that you owe in taxes. So if you have very low taxes, you can't get $7,500 if you don't pay $7,500 in federal tax. The lease loophole, and this link here, it gave a pretty good explanation of how it works. This went into effect, well, actually it was into effect last year as well, but because there's a point of sale change as of January 1, this may be even more of interest to folks. If you lease the car, you can get around the income requirement, and you can get around the vehicle requirements as well. So I'll leave it at that so we can keep on moving through this. But that's something you want to learn about. To qualify for the vehicles themselves, to qualify, vans and sport vehicles, pickup trucks, things like that, SUVs cannot be over $80,000, and then other vehicles $55,000. Battery capacity has to be at least 7 kilowatt hours, and you see there's a weight restriction there as well. And then there aren't many fuel cell vehicles out there, but they are not encumbered by the qualified manufacturer requirements. And the quickest way to find out what is available now, and particularly for electric vehicles, battery electric vehicles, is to go to this fueleconomy.gov web page. And they have you put in a couple of parameters. The first one being what time frame are you buying the car in, and that will give you the list of the cars that are available now. Because they're every year now in the Inflation Reduction Act, every year the battery requirements get a little stricter as we go through the 10-year period of the Inflation Reduction Act. And so because they've just had this shift, we're into the new year now. Many of the vehicles that were qualified for the $7,500 last year are not qualified now. So that's something you want to look into. And this is probably this website, this fueleconomy.gov, is the best place to go to get this information. This brief list here, I know it's hard to read because it's tiny. It's a screenshot from the web page. There's really only 4 vehicle manufacturers who are qualified with full EVs. There are plug-in hybrid electric vehicles that do qualify additionally, but I'm focusing here on the battery electric ones. And these are for new vehicles. If there are demo cars, if they're trying to sell you a demo car, I'd be a little cautious about that and look into that a little bit more. Perhaps consult your tax professional as to whether or not that car would be qualified. Next slide. Just a little bit of background. Oh, yeah, just a little bit of background. The $7,500 is in 2 parts. Part of it is determined by where the car is manufactured, And part of it is where the battery materials come from and where the batteries are basically put together. And so that's just a little bit of background there. And again, I wanted to emphasize that this list to the right here could change throughout the year. So as you know, as the manufacturers work with the federal government to get their cars that they're building to comply with these requirements, they may be added to this list. Okay, next slide. Okay, for claiming the credit, I would, if you're going into a dealer, I would expect, especially in the early months of this year, to be more informed than many of the salespeople will be. That's just how it goes.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah, and so don't be surprised by that. Don't be surprised if they sort of try to steer you in another direction from what you're thinking.
Very true. Very true. Had that
happen. There is a form, a new form, or it's actually not a form, it's a publication. This publication 5900. It's sort of like a checklist that helps you and the dealer comply with the new rules about being able to apply that tax credit instead of waiting till your tax time in April of 2025 if you buy in 2024, and you want to get advantage of that tax credit at point of sale. There's this checklist here, this 5900, and it's sort of lays out everything pretty well there. And so one of the key things is the seller has to report some information to you and the IRS at the point of sale. Do not walk out with the keys and drive off that dealership lot without this information. And that's pretty important. So this is in effect for vehicles that are placed into service as of last week. And the dealers must be registered with the IRS to do this whole thing. And as of last Friday, there was a report out that there's nearly 9,000 dealers across the country that have already registered. So that's why you might walk into a dealer who hasn't been really a high on their attention list. So you might run into a dealer who hasn't registered yet with the IRS. So you want to keep that in mind. On the art right there of that slide there, it says attention new requirement. That's this talks that a little bit. And that is a screenshot from the previous fueleconomy.gov webpage. Next slide. Okay, pre-owned. I wanted to mention pre-owned plug-in vehicles. There is a tax credit up to $4,000 that's available. There's some important requirements that has to meet. And that's in red there, a little lower there. It must be purchased through a dealer. In other words, your friend is going to get a new car, and they're selling their 2-year-old or 3-year-old electric vehicle. You can't buy it directly from your friend. The sale price has to be $25,000 or less, and it has to be at least 2 model years prior. So for 2024, you can't get a used 2023 and get the $4,000. That doesn't work. There's also some income, other qualifications of the buyer, and there's the same sales reporting requirements as on the previous slide. Next slide. Okay, so that was for federal, and I know that was down and dirty. So if I appreciate if you have a lot of questions on that. For Maryland in particular, I do most of my work in Maryland. There is a tax credit for up to $3,000. It's on the excise tax in particular. This is for vehicles that have a base purchase price not exceeding $50,000. And the exact, that's the base price. So that's clearly defined now on the Maryland website, listed below there. That was a little fuzzy last year. It's the verbiage explaining that has been cleared up quite a bit. It's on the Monroney sticker. And it's not the bottom line. After everything's added, it's a base price. It's it has to have at least 4 kilowatt hours of battery capacity and not have been modified, things like that. And then this program goes until 2027. And very interestingly, plug-in hybrid do not qualify in Maryland for the Maryland tax credit. Next slide. Okay, I just want to go, we're going to move over into EV chargers, home EV chargers. And I don't want to take a whole lot of time on this, but this is sort of just some basic information. There are I know there are 4 pictures here, but I'll get to that. There are 3 levels of charging. They call them level 1, level 2, and level 3. Level 1 is something called trickle charging, where you can plug your car into a regular outlet. You do have to be a little careful about the amps and the requirements of the outlet and the charger. But that's called level 1. Not too many people do that. Some people, if they're going to travel for 2 weeks and leave their car sit at home, that's a good practice actually to plug it into a trickle charger. Level 2 is what you see at retail locations and what you'll find mostly for charging at home. And then all the way to the right is what we call CCS combo, CHAdeMO. Those 2 pictures are the upper one, the dark one is the CCS combo or CCS1, and the one in the right hand is the CHAdeMO. CHAdeMO is sort of like the beta of the VHS and Betamax competition, if you would. You don't find many CHAdeMO cars these days. Older Nissans in particular, Nissan Leafs are the ones that come to mind for me that have CHAdeMO. So be very careful if you're going to buy perhaps a used older Leaf with level 3 charging. Not all of them have it. It will probably be CHAdeMO, and you just want to be careful about that because that's basically going away. And in the last year, in fact, in the last 6 months, because I think it was the summer, Ford announced that they were going to adapt the third picture over there, the NACS connector, the North American Charging Standard. That North American Charging Standard was developed and was proprietarily used by Tesla for many years. Now, they did always, I say it was proprietary, but it was because it was developed by them. But they have always opened their patents and things. And so Ford made an announcement that they were going to adopt the NACS connector standard. And very quickly, the dominoes have fallen. And I know it's really small there below that green and red or green and pink indicator of what manufacturers have adopted or have announced that they are going to adopt the NACS connectors, and those who have not. it was amazing how fast the dominoes fell there this past year over the months. And Audi and VW were one of the latest ones in December to announce. The caution here is that if you're considering buying an electric vehicle in 2024 or 25, most of the manufacturers, all that I know of, that are making this change, their cars either for 24 and or 25, depending on the manufacturer, will still have the level 3 CCS combo equipment, the connector on the vehicle, and they have promised to provide buyers of their vehicles until they make that shift an adapter, and I would get that in writing, of course, and I fully expect that they would do that to keep the sales going. But it's a note of caution. And one other thing I want to mention is the arrow there, the left and right arrow. The thing that's nice about the NACS connector, you can hold it in one hand, you can plug it in and unplug it with one hand, whereas those on the far right, they're pretty bulky and pretty much takes two hands to get it connected. And it also works, does the same job in the level 2 environment. So that's why the arrow is there on both left and right. Now, I know I've spent a lot of time on this, but I just wanted to get that basic information out there. Next slide. These are just a couple of pictures. These are home charging situations. The first one of my cars on the left, I just use a trickle charging. This is my probably about 5-year-old Clipper Creek charger that I use. It is a J1772. I do have Tesla vehicles, and I use a small adapter for that. So that works fine. In the future, you'd want to consider, do you want to have what I call a universal charger with an adapter if needed, or do you just want to look for a charger that has the NACS connector on it? The two pictures on the right are actually a neighbor of mine has a pretty robust kind of installation. That's the most complex residential kind of installation I've seen, but he's got a couple of 240 volt outlets there and a couple other things going on, so he can charge multiple cars in his driveway. Next slide. So federal charger incentives, you can receive up to $1,000, and there are a lot of details there that I would look into. This part about where does your location qualify, that still remains a little confusing to me. My understanding has been that they only are allowing folks to take advantage of that tax credit if they were in a census tract that was not an urban area, or a population census tract where the poverty rate was at least 20%. And then the metropolitan, non-metropolitan census tract, it was sort of get into a lot of math there, and it was like, well, just tell me where I can, where can I get that or not? And I think this is where you'd want to consult a tax specialist and get a little bit more clarity, because it's not clear to me as if a regular household with a garage or whatever, or can they get the 1,000 or not? But I would definitely look into it, because next slide, it's also stackable with other other incentives, like from the one from Maryland. The one from Maryland's a little more straightforward. You can get a rebate of up to 50% of the cost, not to exceed $700 for residential. And you can stack that on top of that 1,000 from the federal, and that can go a long way in a household installation. The biggest cost in a household installation is the run from the electrical box or the panel to the location in the garage. If your panel's in the garage, you're golden. It's going to be a pretty straightforward installation. But if you've got, like my house, my panel is on the other end of the building from the garage, so it costs a little more because of the running the wiring. Rebates are on a first come first served basis, and they do run out. It's a fixed pot of money. So, but the general idea is go ahead and submit the paperwork, because they may when they refund the pot, you're in the queue to get that rebate. Next slide. Okay, and then the utilities tend to have some kind of incentive. Generally, what they're trying to do is they are trying to learn how people are using charging. What is the charging practices of folks? And so they want you to install, generally they'll have a list of what we call networked chargers. Network chargers usually cost a little more. Sometimes they'll pay for them. Sometimes they'll put, say, $300 towards them. There may be time of use rate incentives and things like that. And so I just look out for those. You can pretty much find them on most of the utility websites if you use the right keywords. And then there's also, in particular for Maryland, there's a marylandev.org website, which gives some, it gives a layout of incentives for the utilities. Montgomery County in particular has some incentives through what they're calling EV purchasing co-op. And that's the website for that. As of yesterday, the incentives that were listed, or the offerings that were listed there, ended January 2nd. So I would expect them to be updated pretty soon. And then in Maryland, you can also get an HOV sticker, so you can be a single occupant in the HOV lanes in Maryland if you have that sticker. It's very simple to apply for that once you have your EV, and it's at a cost of $5. Next slide. And there's some resources there. I did want to mention that Poolesville Green, we have an EV showcase at the Montgomery County Green Fest this year. It's April 27th, and in Germantown, Maryland. We hope, if you're shopping and you're sort of trying to learn about this, one of the best ways to learn is from other owners who have taken the steps before you. That you're going to get a lot of great advice by talking to owners. And so our next big event is at the Green Fest in April, and then every September, the third Saturday in September, we have a large showcase at the Poolesville Day event. It's a community festival. On decent weather days, we have like 10,000 people. And So, and we try to have as many different varieties of owner operated electric vehicle makes and models there as possible. There's some other websites and stuff there. The QR code there is for, in particular, is for Ask an EV Owner. It's a monthly event on first Wednesday, hosted by the Electric Vehicle Association of Greater Washington, D.C. And that group I am tied closely with. It's all owners that are EV advocates. Some of them have been driving EVs literally for decades if they actually converted a car in the 70s or something like that. So a lot of knowledge in that group. And they're just waiting for people to call in on the first Wednesday to learn more about EV ownership. And I think that's it. That's the last slide, I believe. So, and I hope I haven't taken up too much time.
All right, well, let's sit tight. I want to thank you. I want to give Al a chance to share some good information. We have a lot of things going on in the chat, so we will get to those right after Al's presentation. Al, the floor is yours.
All right, well, if you can, while you're queuing up the slides, I want to thank Antoine and the Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Coalition for inviting me. And thank you, Joyce, for that excellent presentation and for saving me from having to talk about the federal incentives. So I'm at the District of Columbia Government, Department of Energy and Environment. We are both a state agency and a local agency working on my division is working on the intersection of transportation and energy. Next slide, please. So we are guided by a document. Excuse me, the Transportation Electrification Roadmap approved by Mayor Muriel Bowser. This was published in late 2022, and it contains our all of our goals and objectives and tasks to achieve electrification. And a big goal is to do mode shift to make it easier for people to not have to always drive or always own a car, make it easier to use transit, bike, and walk, in addition to electrification of all of the public buses, the fleet vehicles, and the personal vehicles. And one of the big goals is to, next slide, please, to reach 25% zero emission vehicles registered in the District of Columbia by 2030. Here is a slide from about a year ago. And at that point, for brand new registrations, we had about 11% of vehicles as electric vehicles. I should, hopefully the next day or so, I'm going to have data that is through December 2023. So I'm looking forward to updating this slide. Next slide, please. And just a little profile of the vehicles in the district. There are about 300,000 registered vehicles, about 20,000 DC residents drive out of DC for their commute, and about 200,000 non-DC residents regularly drive into the city. And then what the chart is showing you is how much people drive on average. For LDV, stands for light duty vehicle. And it's saying that for DC drivers, most people on average are driving maybe about 20 to 30 miles a day. And then of course, taxi vehicles drive a lot more per day for obvious reasons. Next slide, please. So our local incentives in DC primarily are the excise tax. So the excise tax is the one-time tax that you pay when you purchase a new or a used vehicle. Our excise tax is goes between 1% and 10% of the vehicle purchase price, depending on the weight and the mileage of the vehicle. But for electric vehicles, they're just fully exempt from that excise tax. Another incentive is on the registration fee. So normally you're going to pay $72 annually to renew your registration for a vehicle that's up to 3,500 pounds, and then $175 for a vehicle that's up to 5,000 pounds. So if you have a EV, instead, you're going to pay only $36 for the first 2 years. And then in subsequent years, we're going to subtract $1,000 from the weight. So basically take off the weight of the battery. So for example, let's say you had a Mustang Mach-E that weighs 4,000 pounds and change. Instead of having to pay the $175 annual registration fee, that's going to bump you back down into the $72. For the charging stations, we have a credit for 50% of the allowable costs to install a charging station, up to $1,000 at a private residence, and then $10,000 on non-residential property designed for public use. Pepco has some incentives as well under the EV Smart program. They have a whole house time of use so that you can charge at night, use other appliances at night, save money that way. They have incentives that subsidize the quote unquote make ready work, that is the work required on the utility side for infrastructure to install public chargers. And they also have a program to support taxis as well as public bus charging. Next slide, please. This slide we can skip because Joyce did such a great job. Next slide. So this is a snapshot. There's a database that the Department of Energy runs called the Alternative Fueling Locator. So this is a snapshot from a couple months ago of just, according to that database, how many EV chargers are there in the District of Columbia. So for public chargers, there's about 266 charging stations or 815 total ports, and then a smaller number of private chargers. Next slide, please. So a big focus of our activity is to increase the number of publicly accessible EV chargers. People are not going to buy electric vehicles unless they have places to charge them. So the one program is called NEVI, and this is administered by DDOT. You might have been reading about this if you follow electric vehicles, because this is a nationwide program. It's formula funding. Every state is getting money to install fast chargers on corridors. So it's highways designed for long distance travel. So DDOT they've released their notice of funding availability. So they are going to be doing a procurement where they're seeking partners to install these fast chargers through the NEVI program. And they have a webinar that's scheduled for January 25th for folks to learn about that who potentially may want to partner with DDOT. Next slide, please. Another grant program is called Charging and Fueling Infrastructure, or CFI. This is a discretionary grant program for publicly accessible EV chargers, so DOEE. We submitted a grant application back in June, and we are hoping that in the next days and weeks, we're going to find out if we got the $15 million that we applied for. But this, our grant application would basically double the number of publicly accessible chargers available in the city. We partnered with Shell and Volta, with Georgetown University for their shuttle bus, with Zipcar. There's a company called It's Electric that has curbside charging, innovative model to bring your own cord. BP Pulse and Hertz will put a large fast charging hub down near National Airport. And then also This is not EV charging for vehicles, but we also have as part of this to electrify the Capital Bike Share docking stations so that the e-bikes can charge while they're docked in the station, and instead of the current system where you have a van that drives around and swaps the batteries. Next slide, please. Another grant we applied for is in November. This is a grant to fix broken chargers, and there was one charger that qualified for this, which is the charger on Benning Road. It's been broken for about a year. It was a 50 kilowatt fast charger that one vehicle could charge at a time on the DC cab or Transco property. But if we get this grant, we'll be expanding that to 4 150 kilowatt fast chargers in an area that was kind of a charging desert. So we're looking forward to that as well. Next slide, please. So there is legislation that's making its way through the DC Council. Councilmember Allen introduced this bill called the Comprehensive EV Infrastructure Access Readiness and Sustainability Amendment Act of 2023. The public hearings were back in July, and the bill is currently in markup. So it's being negotiated between the DC Council staff and the various agencies. There has a lot of provisions in it. One of them is right to charge, which basically is if you're a condominium owner, your condominium association, will not be able to deny you the reasonable opportunity to install an EV charger that you would be able to use. Same thing for renters. And then it has a pilot program that DDOT will run to install chargers in neighborhoods. These might be in parking lots, in alleys, on utility poles. And then it anticipates partnering with between DOEE and PEPCO, approved by the Public Service Commission, to have some additional subsidy programs for EV charging infrastructure that would be funded by ratepayers. Of course, we want to monitor the grid, make sure that it can keep up with all the charging demands, and it also has some provisions for brand new buildings. If you're building a brand new building that has a parking garage or parking spaces, it's going to require a certain number of EV charging spaces or EV ready charging spaces for the future. Next slide, please. And that concludes my presentation, and I really look forward to answering any questions. And please email me if you want to connect. We are always looking to support the public with information, and we're always looking to partner with businesses as well as we pursue these various grant opportunities.
All right, well, thank you. We have 10 minutes for questions, and we have a lot of comments in the chat today. Oh my God. All right, let me try to take it from the top here. Laura, I'm gonna need your help because I'm having some technical challenges here, but I don't know why my box is all collapsed, but can you please put the link to the chat if you want EV chargers in your community? I think we've done that. Did you do that, Laurel? I can't,
Yes, I responded to that one.
Okay, let me see if I open up my thing a little more. Okay, here we go. That's better. All right. All right. Can you please, okay, they put that. Can you please put the link? Can you please put the link to the list of the cars that are available? That's on the fueleconomy.gov site. You can also go to driveelectric.gov. Always has a lot of good information as well. Ronald Bethea said, will you be sending out a recording for this event? Laurel, this is available, right, on our social media platforms right now?
Yes, it's streamed on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook.
So
And
can you put the Facebook link in the chat for them so they can go right to there, or link in LinkedIn? That's all they have to do is click right on our LinkedIn or Facebook page. You could do that, please. What types of state or local incentives are currently available or planned for light, medium, or heavy duty fuel cell EVs or hydrogen fueling infrastructure? Did you want to chime in on that, Al?
Yes, I believe the 7,500 credit, federal credit is not specific to EVs. So I believe it would cover some of those other types of alternative fuel vehicles. I see Joyce nodding her head there.
Yeah, that's why it's called the clean vehicle tax credit, not the electric vehicle tax credit.
There you go. She's
Yep.
real smart panel.
And Antoine, just a question on that. This is Emmanuel with WGL. The question was about state and local. The federal is available for FCEVs, but are there any state or local incentives similar to what we see on the charging side for hydrogen fueling or vehicles?
I'm not sure on the state or local, but does Joyce or Al want to
yeah,
chime
so-
in? I did see some Maryland MDE folks on as well. I don't know if any of them want to chime in, but you jump in, Joyce.
Yeah, the only thing I would relate on that is you're not going to put a hydrogen fueling station at your home. You're not going to do that. That's dangerous. There's so hydrogen fueling stations would be a business kind of incentive. I believe they do exist. I don't know if they exist at the state level in Maryland or not. But it's a very expensive proposition. 1.5 million I've heard, unless it's changed.
I want to recognize Eric Gilliland. Eric, you are absolutely right on the e-bike incentives. Al, did you want to chime in on that? We did not cover that. We will not make that mistake again moving forward. We're actually meeting with some of our e-bike partners tomorrow. And so I will assure you, moving forward, we will always make sure that we include not just the charging and vehicles for cars and trucks, but also e-bikes as well. So thank you for bringing that. Al, did you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, we're all very excited about the e-bike rebate program that the DC Council passed. That'll be rolling out soon, and DDOT is in charge of that program. But I know they were reaching out to bicycle stores, retailers to partner with on that program so that that credit can be administered.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. All right. G. Taylor had a question. At least 2 years older than current model year, so has to be an EV from. Is there a limit on how old? I can't understand that question, Joyce or Al.
I think you're talking about one that I addressed a little bit there. Let me see if I can find that.
Someone also, they also asked, are there any incentives to replace a gas engine with an electric?
Yeah, I was trying to address both of those in the chat. Basically, on the older vehicle question, there's no limit on how old, but I do urge caution on, like, if you're looking at a 10-year-old Nissan Leaf, I'd be careful about that. It might be a great car for a teenager who you don't want to go very far. Okay. The issue there is there was batteries that are not temperature managed, have a lot of range issues, particularly older ones. So you want to be very careful about that, and learn as much as you can from owners who have already owned those kind of thing. They're not bad vehicles. They have quirks and they have things that owners will know about them. And so there are owner groups on Facebook and things like that that may be helpful also.
All right.
The other question, which was was it the conversion question?
Yeah,
Yeah, so this is my personal opinion. There was a time for conversions. I don't think that's, unless you're a hobbyist who really wants to get into, working with the guts of the car and all that stuff. I don't think it's financially worth it. You're not going to save any money. They're two different animals. An electric vehicle and an ICE car, internal combustion engine car, are two different animals. In fact, there's a analogy is an ICE car is like a caterpillar, and an EV is like a butterfly. They're the same species, but they're different. They're completely different. So I'd be cautious about jumping into a project like that. In fact, my son, back in 2015, his high school project, graduation project, was to convert an EV and do a price comparison of an EV on the market. Which one was cheaper? Was it cheaper to convert an old Pacer, or was it, or not a Pacer? I forget what, I think it was an AMC Pacer. Or was it cheaper just to buy a Nissan Leaf? And it almost came out like a wash. And there's unless you're really an expert in electrical engineer type, you might spend years converting it.
so we only have a minute and a half left. I want to just go to Al, if you want to just share really quickly any thoughts. Dave Gelman asked about what are you hearing from the need for fleets for help with EVSE assistance, especially school like OSSI. Any comments on that in terms of any technical support? I know we've heard a lot from fleets about the need for workforce development training, better planning. We heard from DOEE about just some of the fleets that medium, heavy duty fleets that they're buying, making sure that they can stay on the road the amount of time and have an electric capacity. Any thoughts? You have any comments on that?
Yeah, I know, DC has a lot of fleet vehicles, and I know the agencies are trying to get their arms around it. So I'm sure they need a lot of, assistance and guidance, and they're researching how to do this. There's DPW that has big fleets of, all kinds of heavy vehicles. OSSI with some school buses. Department of For-Hire Vehicles has some school-related buses as well. And yeah, I think they're under the gun to come up with these plans, and we are working with them to support them, and also the deputy mayor for operations and infrastructure is also working to support them. But yeah, it is a very dynamic area that we would welcome all help and advice in.
Well, we're out of time. I want to thank you all for being here today. Let's give a virtual hand clap for our two speakers. Thank you. You all were all phenomenal. I will say that this is not the last time we're going to have this panel. We'll invite them back in April. We're going to do a number of things in April, especially as these tax incentives go. We're also going to do this probably 2 or 3 different times, not with the same group, but we want to bring them back at least one more time. And we will have some in the evening as well, so that we can reach more people. So thank you all. You have a great week. I want to thank our staff and consultants. Hopefully you all will see you on Thursday, and we can get some updates on some of the other good things that not only these folks are doing, but some of you and others are doing around the region. Take care. Have a wonderful day.